Welcome back to the Get Off the Treadmill podcast for small business owners and entrepreneurs, where we show you how to build a successful business and to have a life too. We're going to dive into another topic that helps us make more money in less time and to get off the treadmill so we can experience a life of significance. And now, your host and the author of the #1 best-selling business book, Making Money is Killing Your Business, Chuck Blakeman.
Hi, I'm Chuck Blakeman, and today I want to talk to you about the only reason your business will fail and how to avoid that fate. I've built 13 businesses in 10 industries on 4 continents, all from scratch, all bootstrapped, and that experience, along with deep dives into research for a couple decades, show me that the long list of reasons we've all been given for why you won't make it, just don't hold water. With almost no exceptions, those are not causes of failure, but the result of just one failure we'll identify in this podcast. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics says 1 out of 5 businesses will fail in the first 12 months, 50% in the first 5 years, and 66% in 10 years, and 80% are gone in 20 years. Why? Why do so many businesses fail? Studies by institutions like NFIB, SCORE, the U.S. Chamber, multiple gurus, and a myriad of academics, and articles in business magazines like Entrepreneur all identify over 40 reasons why businesses fail. Some show up near the top of most of these guys' lists, like bad leadership, bad planning, bad research, bad financing, bad execution, bad hiring, bad partnering, and bad marketing. While any one of these can keep us from succeeding in our first, second, or even third attempts, my experience building 13 businesses and the research as a whole shows none of these things will actually keep you from succeeding. And almost without exception, we don't fail because of any of these things. If we look objectively at the 40 plus reasons researchers say we fail, all of them are things we can pretty much control, with the rare exception of things like pandemics, becoming disabled, and a very short list of other things we can't control, all of which rarely happen more than once or twice in a lifetime. But if you ask small business owners why they're struggling, they will tell you they need a loan. I heard that almost universally in working with business owners in Central Africa for years. And of all the reasons cited why businesses fail, this is nowhere near the top of that list. Remember, I built 13 businesses and never took a loan to build any of them. Before we ever get to where a loan is needed, we need to do a much better job at finding out if there is a market for what we're selling, if we have the ability or the right stuff to sell it, and if we can build and lead a business. Great ideas, great financing, great people on the bus, great marketing, and great market conditions. They're all nice things to have, but none of them will make you successful. In 2009, during the worst recession since the Great Depression, in a real estate market that had been nearly cut in half and that resulted in an 8-year supply of high-end homes, I met a contractor in a coffee shop who was busy building 23 high-end homes all at once, and 4 of them were being built on pure speculation. Somehow he was not succumbing to the notion that the world around him had dictated his success or his failure. I also got invited to that recession and decided not to RSVP because I knew that the people who were attending it were bummers to be around. The world was dealing them a bad hand, and they were just waiting on the sidelines for the world to finally give them the conditions they needed to be successful. From 2008, when the recession started, through the end of 2010, we grew our business 409%. Not because we were special, but because we just didn't leave our destiny in the fate of those around us. It's one of the wonderful benefits of owning your own business. You know, if you work for somebody else during a recession, you can work your buns off and be their highest producer, and you can still get cut because you have less tenure than the goof-off sitting beside you. If you own your own business, you can take your destiny into your own hands and figure it out. So the first thing we need to understand about why we fail is that it's not somebody else's problem. And the list of 40 plus reasons really show that in spades. They're all things that are within our control. So what is it that separates those who make it from those who fold? Ray Kroc, founder of McDonald's, is a shining example of the one thing you need in order to be successful. I want to say I don't align with Ray Kroc and how he moved in the world around him. His values, his principles, and his practices all showed a focus on getting what Ray wanted at the expense of the world around him and everyone that crossed his path. So the first thing we know about Ray was that he wasn't successful by serving others or attempting to do good in the world. You can be successful even if your motivation is purely self-focused. Ray was also not a good business person. Having studied his life, at almost every turn he was making short-sighted, badly conceived, almost knee-jerk decisions, any one of which could have taken him down, and it many times did. He also didn't understand numbers or financing. He didn't understand how to build a process, how to work with people, how to motivate them, how to market these things. None of it. We've identified the 7 elements of every business, and Ray was only good at one of them, business development. And even there, his toolbox was pretty limited. Ray Kroc was not successful because he understood business or how to build one or how to instill vision for the future. Even after 30 years in business, Ray was not a particularly successful business person. For 15 years, he sold paper cups, then 3 to 4 years selling ironing boards that fold up into your wall, and then another 15 years hawking milkshake mixes out of the trunk of his car to restaurant owners. 34 years later, Ray had a good personal income, but didn't have any business assets to speak of. He pretty much owned a job, nothing more. Nobody spends 34 years of selling paper cups, ironing boards, and milkshake mixers if they are a business genius and a visionary entrepreneur. Yet at the age of 54, without any idea what he was doing, his wife actually had to explain it to him a few years later. Hey, you know what you've got here? At the age of 54, he started down the road to building and owning one of the largest, most successful franchises in the history of the world, and ended up a raging financial success, who everyone perceived to be a business genius and a visionary entrepreneur, 2 things he most assuredly was not. Even in the process of building his empire, he didn't exhibit the attributes we all think of in order to be successful. He had no vision for where he was going. He visited the McDonald's brothers in California because for their 5 restaurants, they were going through milkshake mixers at a rate well beyond anything he had ever seen. He wanted to see why and offered to help them franchise so he could sell more milkshake mixers as they grew their business. They had already franchised a number of their restaurants, so Ray struck a deal to get a tiny percentage if he could help them continue. He was dogged about signing up new owners for them, but after adding a few dozen restaurants to their business, he really wasn't making much off the fee he collected for signing them up. Yeah, he was selling more milkshake mixers, but that wasn't enough. He hadn't thought to write himself in as a possible owner if he did X or anything to reflect his efforts beyond a small fee per restaurant. He was basically a franchise broker and nothing more. So he went about figuring out how to steal the whole thing from the 2 brothers. He fumbled his way through wrestling the business from them and started aggressively finding more franchises for his new business. But at just over 100 restaurants, he was still unable to figure out how to make an income from the business. His income was still coming from the 1 McDonald's restaurant he owned himself in Chicago, which he probably called McDonald's location number 1. It was actually the 6th location behind the 5 the McDonald's brothers had built. And the rest of his revenue came from milkshake mixer sales. In fact, the business was doing so badly with 100 restaurants that if he didn't land a big loan very quickly, it was all going to go under. Now, I've met a number of people who own just a few restaurants who make a really good income. If you can't figure out how to make an income from 100 plus restaurants, you're probably not a very good business person. This whole business was saved by a serendipitous meeting. Ray was at one of the many banks he pitched to give him a loan. The banker had done his homework and mentioned Ray's failure in the ironing board business and other bad business dealings and denied him the loan. But there was a guy sitting at the next desk overhearing the conversation who pursued Ray out the door of the bank. He took a look at Ray's financials and saved the business by informing Ray he was doing it all wrong. Instead of focusing all his efforts on getting franchise fees from owners, he needed to buy the land on which the restaurant owners would build, then lease the land back to them. From that day forward, McDonald's shifted from being in the hamburger business to being in the real estate business, and profits soared. None of it thanks to Ray himself. But some would say, wasn't he incredibly innovative? No. He didn't invent franchising, nor did he come up with any of the novel business ideas that McDonald's was so famous for. For many years, the McDonald's brothers had used their speedy service system to throw food through a window at customers. The yellow and red look and feel, including the famous McDonald's arches, it was already in use before Ray met the brothers. The whole franchise model was up and running. And just about every great idea he ever got credit for came from somebody else. And he usually resisted it. Ice cream freezers were a huge drag on profits. And in the early 60s, one of the franchisees introduced him to the polymer-based Reed plastic milkshake, which needed no refrigeration. It was a game changer that Ray initially resisted. One of his locations started selling breakfast, and that nearly got them shut down by Ray. And the Quarter Pounder, the Big Mac, the Egg McMuffin, Ronald McDonald himself, Happy Meals, and just about every other innovation you can think of in McDonald's was dreamed up by one of his franchisees. And after Ray saw it created more revenue for them, he stopped resisting it and took it national. His biography understandably presents all of this in a very different light, including the title, The Founder. which of course he wasn't. The McDonald's brothers were the founders. So if he wasn't a visionary, he wasn't a good leader, a good business person, a kind servant of others, he wasn't a good innovator or a good strategist or a good tactician, if he wasn't any of these things, how did he end up with so much success in business? One thing made Ray Kroc successful and covered for all his weaknesses in business. He had it in spades, and the McDonald's brothers, the true geniuses and the true great business people, had almost none of it. He was relentless. With whatever he was doing, he was all in and pushed forward relentlessly. Defeat was never defeat. It was what Churchill famously said: success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. And he epitomized Vince Lombardi's belief that it's not whether you get knocked down that matters, it's whether you get back up. The one thing that separates the successful from those who quit is the willingness to be relentless. It's not grit, resilience, fortitude, or many of the other great attributes that we should definitely all embrace. I want all of them, but those are all reactive, defensive attributes. They are the attributes of the pioneer who built a mud and thatched cabin on the prairie and withstood every possible challenge and difficulty that came their way. Those attributes will help us survive and do so with a great attitude. Being relentless is at a different level. It is leaving the thatched cabin for good and striking out for new horizons, knowing that in doing so, you are creating trouble for yourself that you would never have faced if you just hunkered down with resilience and grit in that cabin year after year. Being relentless isn't about surviving. It's going beyond that to thriving, never stopping, never laying down, always getting back up, and then actively pushing forward to learn, grow, and become more than we were the day before. Relentless is by definition always moving forward. A stream does not have grit or resilience. A pond that isn't going anywhere might have that, but a stream is relentless. It's always pushing forward, knowing that in doing so, it will cause trouble for itself that the pond will never experience. It invites the trouble because it knows that at every beaver dam, every waterfall, every meadow, and yes, every pond that it has to get through are all necessary to fulfill its purpose to get to the ocean. They're all just bumps along the way. And when the stream runs into a beaver dam, it's not surprised and it doesn't get emotional. It just figures out a way to deal with the trouble it has proactively gone and found. Ray Kroc would take a record player on the road while he was hawking milkshake mixers from town to town, and he would play a motivational LP record about perseverance over and over and over. Perseverance is the sister to being relentless. Relentlessness refers to an unyielding, unwavering, and often aggressive pursuit of a goal without regard for obstacles or opposition. It assumes trouble is part of the package. And in fact, it's the trouble that will guide it to success. Perseverance is the quality we add to being relentless that basically says, never give up. Ray Kroc had both in spades. He was relentless and he just kept going. Steve Jobs famously said, I'm convinced that about half of what separates successful entrepreneurs from the non-successful ones is pure perseverance. None of the other things. It's just relentlessness, perseverance, pushing forward, and never giving up. Well, we've been taught by our mothers, our teachers, society, and even the Small Business Administration that we should play it safe and not take chances that could end up in failure. But to paraphrase Kipling, we should treat victory and defeat as the imposters that they are. I just love that statement. And as Churchill said, it is the courage to continue that counts. I titled this podcast, The Only Reason Your Business Will Fail and How to Avoid That Fate. So the only reason we ultimately fail is this: we get tired and we stop pushing forward. We run out of gas like the McDonald's brothers did and just don't have the juice to be relentless anymore. We use the analogy of being on the treadmill, always trying to make money and never figuring out how to build a business that makes money when we are not there. And that mindset of making money will wear us out. These podcasts are designed to help us find and embrace the principles, practices, and tools that will help us get off the treadmill, keep us from wearing out, and give us the energy to stay relentless. So do you want to be successful? It will definitely help if you're a good leader, have great ideas, are a good visionary, have good financial backing, if you've got good people on the bus, are good at execution and working with people and have a great product or service to offer. All of these things are great. And this podcast going forward will focus on getting you all those tools. But if you don't decide to be relentless, and if you don't decide to actively push forward with causing your own trouble instead of waiting for trouble to come find you, you have almost no chance of being successful, no matter how many of those other goods you have. And yet, as Ray Kroc and countless others have shown, if you lack a lot of the skills, the talents, and the resources that everybody says are essential, but you are relentless, you may not be successful the first time and instead experience the imposter called defeat. But if you are relentless, you will get right back up and you will eventually get past all the troubles that are necessary for you to be the small stream that gets from the side of the mountain to become the roaring river that finally finds the ocean. The big idea here is this: know what you want, get moving, take the first step and then the next, and use each trouble that you cause in your journey to learn and get stronger. Don't sit around waiting for trouble to come find you. Get moving, get in trouble, and stay in trouble. It's the only way you're going to find your ocean. Keep going.
That wraps up another episode of the Get Off the Treadmill podcast. If you found this podcast helpful, please subscribe and hit the like button to ensure you are receiving the latest tools you need to grow your business and to get off the treadmill. If you want more information on the 3 to 5 Club, the Crankset Group, or to book Chuck as a business advisor, speaker, or workshop leader, you can contact us at grow@cranksetgroup.com. Until next time, have a great week.